to death. Like, I almost died. Well, not really died, but okay. So, me and my two friends were spending the night. Let's call them Kennedy and Lily. So, we were at Kennedy's house spending the night, and she has an older sister. Let's call her Kylie. And, her mom's name, let's just call her, Jen for now. Okay, so, me, Lily, and Kennedy all woke up and we were like, hi, hi, hi. Kylie was at one of her volleyball games. Well, Kylie was at one of her practices, which was happening for like 2 hours. And Jen, Kennedy's mom, was at work. Okay, so and Kennedy's dog. Okay, so we woke up and we were like, hey, hey, hey. We were sitting there watching TV in the morning, and we just hear a toilet flush in Kylie's room. And we're like, okay. And we knew someone was home then, so we didn't know who, but we didn't know it couldn't be Kylie because her practice was going on until 2 hours. And Jen was at work for like 8 hours. Okay, so we screamed, hello, is anyone there? No one answered. And we yelled, Kylie, is that you? And no one answered. So we were like scared at this time, honestly. We were like so scared. I was sitting there freaking out. I was like, oh my God, call the police. Someone's in the house. And then I'm like, oh my gosh. So we see this. Kennedy walks out of the room and looks into Kylie's room, and she sees this like skinny shadow. And we're like, and Kennedy's like, oh no, this is bad. And she tells us what she's seen. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to call my dad. So I call my dad, and I'm like, hey Dad, so we're at Kennedy's house right now, and we think there's a big monster trying to eat us because we just like heard the toilet flush. And yeah, and then oh my God, this got me laughing so hard. My dad said, okay, so you need your toilet fixed? And I'm like, oh my God, no, we're gonna die. And he's like, oh, well, I can't help you, and hung up on me. And I'm like, oh my God. So we called Lily's sister. Let's call her Prue right now. So Prue, we called her, and she's like, well, I'll walk over there, just stand outside. And we're like, no, that thing's outside. And she's like, and she's standing on the phone with us, unlike my dad. So she's standing on the phone with us, and like, she said, grab some weapons. So I grabbed, a belt. I grabbed a belt to whip that thing. I grabbed sanitizer. I grabbed perfume. I grabbed a legit fork, because she had a fork in her. And I was like so ready to beat that thing up. And then my friends just grabbed a bottle and a belt. One of them grabbed a bat, and I was like, oh yes, this is gonna happen. This is gonna go down. So we get out there. I'm like, wait, I'm too scared. I have to go back and I have to eat and tell them before I die. And I'm like, okay. Okay. And like, yeah, and then, yeah. And then like, so we get out there, and I'm like, hi. I'm like, who are you? Get out of the house, whoever you are. So then I'm like, get out of the house, whoever you are. Leave. And then Kylie comes out, Kennedy's older sister, and says, what do you want? I almost hit her in the face with the bat. I'm like, ah! And then like, she's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh my gosh, Kylie, aren't you supposed to be at practice? And she's like, that ended 2 hours ago. And I realized what time it was, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. And we're like, so we put everything away, and my dad called, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna come over, and I'm gonna beat whoever that is up. And I'm like, so you're gonna beat up Kylie? He's like, oh God, no.